Hello, you're watching TVP World Talks. I'm Jonasz Rawicki. Now, Lithuania's government has evidently had enough of Alexander Lukashenko's antics. An emergency situation, a step below a full-blown state of emergency, has now been declared after Belarusian weather balloons began swarming across the border, posing a risk to aviation safety. In theory, these balloons are just a vehicle for smuggling operations, but Lithuania insists the Belarusian government is behind this, and the whole thing forms part of a broader hybrid warfare effort. Joining us now is Sigita Struberga, from the Secretary General of the Latvian Transatlantic Organization. Hello and welcome to TVP World.
Hello, and thank you for having me.
So first of all, let's make one thing clear. This is not a state of emergency. It's one step below this, right? I mean, this was incorrectly reported by some agencies in the West. So let's clarify, what does it mean? Emergency situation.
So basically, in this case, it means that the necessary space for the services is open. At the same time, it does not influence the everyday life of inhabitants. What is very important to remember, if you compare, for example, with the COVID-19 times, then when the special status was invented, it meant also certain restrictions for the inhabitants, for the movement, etc. In this case, it doesn't happen, right? And Lithuanian government has been very clear about the inconveniences which will not be made to citizens.
So what about extra powers for the military, for example? Does that come into play here?
Of course, if necessary, it will come in here, and here it is very important to really understand that there is a specific need for this extra measures and extra powers, including from military, taking in consideration that, as you already underlined, it's really not about smuggling.
These balloons, apart from carrying cigarettes, they pose a threat to the country's airspace, right? Can you tell us more about this? What does this entail in terms of, for example, airport closures? Because this is not just an inconvenience, it's also quite expensive.
It is quite expensive, exactly, and it basically means, indeed, for the airport, it means that you need to close the airport and to lead planes to other airports if necessary, or to wait for landing or to wait for departure. It's very expensive, and it's also very inconvenient for passengers. But not limited to this. If you look on actually what is happening, it's not only about economic issues. It is very much actually about what exactly those balloons are meant for. And rather, we should look on it as a serious security threat, looking on these balloons as possible measures for spying, for example, taking in consideration that, as I said, it's clear that those balloons are not meant for really smuggling. It's the same as to say that innocent migrants appear on Lithuanian, Polish, or Latvian borders just because of their only will, and not really the measures of Belarusian services. But also what has been released, by the way, yesterday by the Lithuanian services is that what has been observed is that Belarusian services are using Telegram and other platforms in order to find the inhabitants of Lithuania to be involved in this balloon story, in order to demonstrate it as Lithuania would do it itself to make a scandal. So basically, we see the next step of extension of this issue with balloons.
So also, we do not really know when the balloon is in the air. We don't really know what it's carrying. Like you said, it could be espionage equipment. It could even be some sort of improvised explosive device, which could do damage on the ground. Now, what should be the solution to that? Because naturally, one thing is, imposing sanctions on Belarus, putting pressure on the Lukashenko regime. Should these balloons be shot down after they violate the airspace? And if so, what measures should be used to that effect?
So basically, I'm not military expert to tell you what is the best way how to shut them down, but definitely what I would congratulate Poland is for the very clear message to Russia that any drones will be shut down. I think this would be the case also in here, taking in consideration that balloons themselves also are not cheap, right? So at the same time, of course, in this case, I wouldn't say that we need to spend the most expensive missiles or missiles at all. But I'm sure there are other measures how to shut down balloons in a necessary manner. Probably it might be drones, but as I said, I'm not military expert. From the perspective of communication, definitely communicating that they will be shut down, the border will be closed, etc., is what works. We saw very well how much Lukashenko is very worried when the issue of shutting down borders appears.
And obviously, if the Lukashenko regime wants to maintain plausible deniability, saying that they are not involved with this, they would not be protesting the destruction of these balloons anyway, because these are not their balloons, it's just smugglers. It's a private venture, in theory.
In theory, indeed, the same as we have seen with migrants. But what I mean with closing down the borders is physical closing down the borders, which worries Lukashenko, and this is what we have seen. On the balloons, most probably, indeed, he will not have any communication on that. But at the same time, as I said, closing borders or shutting down the borders is another issue. What worries Lukashenko. In terms of balloons, definitely the official message from Minsk will be that government has nothing to do with it, but it's more than clear. If you look on the smuggling cigarettes as such, which is a big issue, by the way, in Baltics, as a criminal activity, then you will see that balloon itself is too expensive to be used for smugglers to carry on such a small amount of cigarettes. There is no logic in it. And what we definitely have to look on more carefully in Baltics, in the eastern flank of NATO, or actually in Europe in general, is to see even balloons as a part of hybrid war against Europe.
So, of course, it's a hybrid warfare logic. One quick question. It was mentioned that NATO should be more proactive, perhaps, in its dealings with hybrid warfare operations. Should we perhaps be sending balloons with leaflets containing some inconvenient information, inconvenient to the regime, so for the Belarusian people to become acquainted with, for example?
I do agree on creative part of what you suggest.
The Lukashenko regime already accused one of the Western countries of sending drones, scattering leaflets around. So, I mean, the accusation's already there, even though it has not been done. So maybe it should be done.
Indeed, but I think there are many other ways we can use, for example, in cyber or digital space. And by the way, for example, Russians themselves, those Russians who are in exile, have given us a very good example for how to do this type of information operations in digital space. Russians in exile, what they have done, they have made a specific operation some time ago on targeting those who might be mobilized mobilized in order to tell them how to escape mobilization. So this type of information operations or informing Russians and Belarusians, definitely we can use in more extensive manner. And we should remember also that we shouldn't be too scared to use this type of measures, taking in consideration that escalation itself does not happen according to the logic not to make Putin or Lukashenko angry. The logic of escalation works totally differently.
Now let's move on to another issue, the Baltic defense strategy. This has been mentioned in the most recent document that was adopted by the US Congress. Namely, I am referring to the National Defense Authorization Act. And this includes specific provisions for substantial amounts to be given to this initiative in order to bolster NATO's defenses against Russian operations in the Baltic Sea theater. Do you think that's a positive development now that we have the US Congress speaking up on this and perhaps providing a counterbalance to more isolationist tendencies in the White House?
On one hand, indeed, it is a positive message. On another hand, what worries me is that as soon as Europeans see some certain positive message, they might become a bit more relaxed. This is based on experience, what we have seen. So from my perspective, we have to remember that all this is about goodwill of our partner, but we can't rely only on goodwill of our partner, which can change in certain circumstances. It's a good message, but at the same time, we have to continue to strengthen our capabilities, to rely on ourselves, to work more on focusing on our homeworks.
So are you saying that, ironically enough, this ambiguity coming from Washington in order to, could actually spur more European countries into action and actually increase security rather than decreasing it in the long run?
In a long run, indeed, I would say that it is indeed scenario, and also very much in needed scenario, because long-term tendency, what we see in United States anyway, and what was actually mentioned by yourself, is that the focus is switching, and focus was switching from Europe already far before Trump. And we have to remember that this long-term tendency will continue to be apparent in the U.S. Security strategies or U.S. views on globe. So that's why it is very much needed to continue to focus on our self capabilities in a long term, and it is not only about Russia's aggression in Ukraine at the moment. Indeed, it is about long-term security strategies for Europe.
Sigita Struberga was our guest today here on TVP World. Thank you very much for joining us and for sharing your insight.
Thank you.
And I'm Ina Sharavinsky. You're watching TVP World. Please stay with us here for more latest news, updates and commentary.